This is the Pete Wong Podcast, sharing the things that I love with those that I love. I've always wanted to talk about the things that I care about in life. People have told me time after time, why don't you just share more of you? And with that, let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's The Pete Wong Podcast. How's everyone holding up out there in the world? I'm super, I don't want to just say excited because I've said that before. I'm catching myself right now. I'm like, I've said that before, haven't I? What's another word for excited?
I was thinking you were gonna say blessed, to be honest with you.
A blast is always...
No, blessed.
Oh, blessed. Oh, okay. All right. I like that. I do feel blessed. Listeners, I just want you to know that I've been trying to get Ricky on here for 2 years, or was it about 2 years?
It was about 5 years ago. We tried recording on my internet. Actually, no, it was 4 years ago. My son was a baby. He was an infant.
I love it how parents can always use their kids as a barometer of how old they are.
Yeah. I can tell you that was like 52 months ago.
I am blessed to have... Do you go by Rick, Ricky?
Anyone.
All right.
Anyone.
I'm going to do
whatever you call me, Ricky. You've always been a Ricky guy. Can I just interject real quick? The only reason why I'm a Ricky is because before I had met you, before I went back to Minnesota, I was working in the car business. And there was a guy who worked at the same dealership, an old guy named Rich Hoffman. So when they would call over the loudspeaker, we both would go pick up the phone call, like if he had a phone call. And so they had to make me, because I was the younger one, they made me Ricky. So then it's just stuck. So then I probably introduced myself to you as Ricky, and that's how it's just had to share that little tidbit.
That is great. I love that. I love it how the name has a story.
Yeah.
This is Ricky Hoffman. Thank you, Ricky, for making it on here. It took 4 years, but we're here now. I think I want to start off telling the listeners how we know each other. Do you want to share it, or?
Sure. I'll share my remembrance of it, but thank you for having me. By the way, I'm blessed to be here with you. Blessed to still have these conversations and this type of genuine relationship that has survived. I mean, that was 20 years ago. That's the crazy. That was 20 years ago. But I don't remember exactly how we met per se, but I do remember. I know it was at Metro State, and I know it was in one of our classes. But I do remember we instantly became friends and worked on projects together. And I just remember having, there was one, Mr. Byrne, I think was his name. I don't remember the teacher's name either, but Mr. Byrne or the professor. But I remember we had to film that one stupid short clip, and it had the flip over pen, and I lost it and could not get it together. And we had to do about 20 takes. And, but then also, I just remember you were one of the first people who I ever met, because at that time, I'd only been writing like in my closet, trying to hide it away because I was too cool to be a writer and stuff. And so that was my first jump in. And so you were the first person I ever met that really took the bull by the horns. And you had written a short script about the mafia. I remember I believe it was at a restaurant. And
the Too Short Mafia script.
Too Short, that Too Short Mafia script. Yep, and you were intent on getting that, and so we tried to get that. But I mean, that was the first time, so I was actually really impressed by it and stuff. But and then just that we just had that. We were just, I mean, you one of the besties, man. I mean, you were always that we were a good friend. And we've stayed, together. That's what you're forever. That's all. It's a forever buddy, That's the way I look at it.
Oh, thank you. Forever buddy. That's the first time I've ever heard that. I like that. I remember this good-looking, young, debonair screenwriter, I don't know, like, I don't know why I was like thinking, you know, like you were like a lot younger than me, but I don't think you are, right? But
I might be older than you. I don't know.
really? Okay, all right.
I think so. I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm 42.
43. Yeah, I'm older.
Oh, no way. Okay. You know when you're writing a script or you're directing a movie, you're always got your eyes and ears, or you got your eyes looking for the one that's going to be on the camera. Going to be on the camera. I was like, oh, he looks like an actor. And then what was so cool was, no, like he can write. That project, I remember because we were like stuck in the bathroom and there was like toilet paper or something like that. We kept on pulling the toilet paper.
Yeah.
I remember we got together, hung out, probably watched movies, shared projects. You were the first person to ever say, hey, do you mind reading my script? I said, oh yeah, sure. And here I'm thinking, you know, a little short, little, you know, like a couple of pages. And then bam, he drops it. And it's this like, I don't know how many pages it was. Ricky had the title page. He had the however you bind it. Flipping through, I'm like, dang, like the formats, like, so I was like, I just felt like honored and at the same time like a little intimidated that I had to read this thing, but I wanted to read it. It's just like, wow, this is a movie here, right? So you were like more advanced than a lot of the people in the class because you were already writing, and I was writing. I got into writing because I had ideas and I would tell them to people and they didn't want to film them.
Yeah.
If I want to film something, maybe I got to write it. So that's what I remember. And then you're caring, like you're a very caring person, and that's, you know, I think that's what gravitated, you know, me, you know, towards that. And then also just our conversations about film and like the industry and Hollywood.
Right.
Right. He rolls his eyes, right?
As to no, yeah, no. Well, the funny thing is too, is it's not to like, but when I started at the school, I was already about like 3-4 years into writing, and I came on it as a total kind of fluke. Like when I was a young kid, I wrote, like even in first grade, I wrote a story about Michael J. Fox's mittens. And my mom and she sent it in to think, like they all thought it was the greatest thing, so they all thought I was gonna be, but I never wanted to write, and it actually came out of like after my son passed away and some things that I was going through at the time. I literally was at like a party and felt like I had something, like people turn on me and all this. And I went home from the party and just wrote and sat down and thought, I'm going to write my life story. And I wrote, and I spent like 2-3 weeks straight, even got fired from, I was a jeweler at a jewelry store in the mall and got fired because I didn't even go into work. I just sat there and wrote. And then 2 days after I finished the script, I got in my car and drove and was on my way to California. And I stopped in Arizona to see my dad, who was kind of strange from, but he had introduced me to a playwright, a guy who done like some off-Broadway stuff, who's now like in Phoenix stuff. And that guy kind of took me under his wing, gave me books to read and showed me, you know, how to write, read my stuff. And so literally, I think the script that you read was probably like my 7th or 8th script. Wow. And I considered myself at that time like a very polished writer, and thought like, which I think now in this day and age, with the way back then, young writers still weren't really a thing. So it was tough to break it. It kind of came a little bit after us. It's kind of like the YouTube generation. Like I think if YouTube would have been out in my heyday, I would have been like Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Like probably not as big of a jackass or anything, but that would have been, you know, I just would have done and had people, I think, interested in. Thing was I could never get real like feedback on my stuff either. I never really felt comfortable enough, which is weird to hear. Like, I really appreciate you saying that. And I almost wish I would have known that, more, because I just always, that was my thing, which I always just felt that was the one thing. Like, baseball I always had, I never was intimidated. Hollywood intimidated me, like when I moved out there and everything, and I was in a good circle, but that's what I saw is it's really just a really tight circle, so like it kind of derailed my writing to a large degree. But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, just try to keep it positive here. That was that way down. But I think you felt more comfortable, like, engaging with other people with it, or I was more like, it came from such a personal place when I started, to me, that like in a dark one, that like it was always, even when I wrote comedies, it was like, it was really hard. And like I said, I always came from a like writing wasn't cool, jock, Mr. Cool type thing. So it was always hard to get over that hurdle of, revealing myself as like a writer, which, like I said, in this day and age seems crazy to even think like that was, but I do remember people like literally openly against the idea of it. I remember a friend in college, I went up and he was like 2 years older, at St. Cloud State, coming up and whispering to me about how he was trying to write a book and was like working, and like just afraid to say it out loud because people would laugh at him, and now it's like everybody's got their own like way to tell their story every day, whether it be like Instagram, everybody's open, you know what I mean? Like, it's just bizarre to think of, like, but that was a part of why my brain was wired in that way. Like, it was a different world back, you know what I mean? And not all that severe serious. I mean, I'm sure different areas, but where we came from, or at least where I came from, it was a different world, man.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Wow, I haven't thought about that, but that's so true. Wow, I'm glad you shared that, because I think it puts so many things in perspective. But I wanted to, since we brought it up, I wanted to bring up, or I wanted to talk about, you were saying, it came from a personal place, and that place was dark. Can you take us to that place? Is that all right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's now been 26 years. This will be the 26th year. So it is. And I think last year I made a post about it, and because it was his 25th, it would have been his 25th birthday, which is insane to think that I could have a 25, 26-year-old son running around. But yeah, so when I was in high school, I ended up having, and I went to Hill Murray, which, if again, it's crazy times, things are so different there, but I got my girlfriend pregnant, and it wasn't a healthy relationship before, and it certainly wasn't healthy after, but she had a ton of issues with the pregnancy. And, so spent, even before she had the child, I mean, I think she spent like 2-3 months, in the hospital, bedridden, stuff like that. And so my son was born 3 months premature, and he was born at 1 pound, 14 ounces. I mean, tiny. I believe it's 13 inches long. So, just barely bigger than the palm of your hand, and just tiny. And and he was in the NICU for his entire life, and just never really had a shot, which they, about 2-3 days after he was born, they told us he had the strongest lungs they'd ever seen on a baby that size. So they wanted to take him off the ventilator. So they took him off the ventilator. And then about 2-3 days after that, they came back and said they couldn't, his lungs couldn't handle it and that. So they put him back on the ventilator. And he never got taken back off the ventilator again until we eventually had to make the decision to unhook him from, basically stop his treatment. But he was alive for just under a month, literally like 2 days under a month, 3 days under a month. But it was just a surreal experience. I mean, he literally died in my arms on my junior prom day, to which, I mean, and I hold no like ill will for her, but my date literally came to the hospital right after it happened, not knowing what had happened, but was like, I was just wondering if he was going to go tonight. And they told her no, that my son had passed away. And she said, oh, tell him not to worry about going. Then, like, just kind of weird, like, and I don't think, but that's just how, like, nobody, I think, could really understand. It's such a, like, I know my niece, super strong. She just had a near similar incident. Her son was born with encephaly, and she carried him to term knowing that he wasn't going to make it when he was born. She knew that for a couple months and wanted to carry him, and he was alive for a day, really a lot longer than they thought. But just an amazing story too. And, like, it was kind of like, in ways, like you had said earlier, I don't know if it was when we were just chatting before this, but like, you had seen kind of a similar story and wanted to, like, put me in contact, kind of, well, I was like kind of helping her through that too. And it was like, I always thought it would be like, I would be more inspirational, this and that, but when the situation comes, it's really kind of, it's an awkward thing. And I tried, and she was very receptive and awesome to it, but it's just such an awkward thing, which is what I've seen over the years. I mean, it's something that most people are uncomfortable, dealing with, and even kind of addressing that. It leads to, it makes it almost even worse, and you can't, like, so there was, and at the point I was at the time too, and with the situation the way it was, I mean, it was, I mean, again, it's just, if we could have a really just sad talk, and, like, I mean, it was something that I really don't think, in the whole scope of it from beginning to end, I don't think people would ever really understand. And affected me, I mean, immensely. I mean, I went from kind of a golden boy in school to where I could do no wrong. Every parent, teacher, kid loved me, and to almost immediately, like, just I don't, almost like just a demon, like, literally just, I they could not do enough to gaslight me. They could not do enough to, hard, like, just mentally, emotionally put me through, like, just situations. It got so out of control. I had to, I don't know anyone else has ever had to do this either, but because it was at a Catholic school, and then, I mean, they were like ashamed that it happened. They didn't, it was like, they didn't want to, like, encourage it in any way. So they didn't want to make it like a humane thing. It was just a bad thing by a bad kid, and, but I ended up having to go to counseling sessions during school time, but off campus, with the girl, her mom, her dad, my mom, the dean of students at the school, the principal, and like two other counselors. But so, and like, to discuss my personal issues, that we're going through, like in hers and all that stuff. I mean, like just insane. And in that instance, like this is how helpless I felt at the time. I just remember like she was telling them how she was never going to accept the fact that because I had broken up with her too before because of just a horrible, just experience dating, all this stuff. But she was telling them how she was never going to get over me and we were going to be together. We had to be together. She was never going to accept it. And I was just like, listen, this is never going to happen. Like, you got to get it through your head. Like, we're never going to get back together. Said this in front of it all. And her mom interjected and was like, do you see that? He's just saying not right now, maybe in the future. And I'm literally like, no, don't you guys understand me? Like, and no adult was, like jumping in. Like, it was like, I don't, and like with the way kids are, I mean, but I've always had different, like I used to get phone calls when I was in like 6th, 7th, 8th. I had people would call and threaten to like kill me and stuff just because of who I was. Like, I literally would get death threats. And in this day and age, it's such a different thing. Like, I don't think, so I just kind of dealt with it. And I mean, I had such a horrible, and I ended up getting kicked out halfway through my senior year. And they never kicked me out, but they said if I had another incident, I would get kicked out. But, and so I left and I went to a school in Arizona for baseball. But I mean, it was just like, I just couldn't run away from Minnesota fast enough at that time. And even now, it comes out, it manifests itself in different ways. And I always was able to, like, me, I've bounced around. I've lived a lot of places. I've chased a lot of dreams and gone down a lot of rabbit holes I feel a lot older than I am. Like now it's starting to kind of catch up with me a lot more. And I've been grounded here in Nevada for a while, Las Vegas, and it just seems like now it really, like the chances, I don't take any chances anymore. Like I'm pretty straight and narrow, and it's just weird. It gotten old, man. And it's a weird feeling. And so looking back on it, and I've grown, but that's the weird thing. Like you can't ever, one weird thing that has lasted with that throughout my life is, first off, a lot of people that are very close to me and stuff like that. And like, everybody has moments, but it's been used as a weapon against me a lot more than people trying to help me heal. Let's put it that way. Like, it's a weird thing knowing that it's something that has affected me so much. A lot of people have taken that vulnerability and like to attack it in moments of, to cause, which is a weird thing. But that's another thing, is like, you can't even, like, I do talk about the situation a lot because it'll come up in certain things, but I really don't ever like spend any time like talking about it or anything, unless like his birthday or, Father's Day used to be really tough. It's a little less tough now because my son is, my son Radley. And I get like people, a lot of people like to say that you've never gotten over it. You know what I mean? Like, never. And it's a weird thing because it's like those, people, again, I don't know anyone who's gone through it. So I don't know anyone who can say like there's a way to get over it. Like, I don't even think I can say that there's a way to get over it or anything. But I do think I have gotten over it, which is weird. I mean, it definitely still affects me, which I think is normal for trauma and grief. And I don't think there's ever going to be a time that it's going to be like, well, yeah, my dad's, I'm maybe cracking jokes about it, or anything like that. But it is like when certain periods come up, and so I wish people would understand that more. And a lot of these people that say things like that, like, will then bring up, what I would consider to be, and I think most people would consider to be, way less traumatic experiences. They bring those up all the time and use those as like crutches, you know what I mean? To pretend like this is why they have their guard up in this way. And like, I've never really done that either. I don't think I've ever really let myself be guarded or jaded from people because of my trauma. I've actually think I've opened up more. But it's also weird too, because now my son probably would make it. You know, back then, like 90% of the kids, you know, in that situation didn't make it. Now it's probably the exact opposite. And now, and another weird thing that happened shortly after was like the teen moms and the teen, you know, it became normal for teenagers to be pregnant in high school. Not normal, but I mean, it became a lot more widespread and a lot more accepted, and like the TV shows and stuff like that. So a lot of the things, again, it's just kind of a situation of circumstance in my life, because like a few years later would have been totally acceptable, like not a big deal, and probably would have been something. But then it was more like and especially the school that I was in, and it was like a shunning. I mean, it was, and so that definitely, I think that affected me a lot more in dealing with people than you know, the trauma and the grief that I went through with my son, because there were, you know, I had positive, like I wanted him to live even at that age. You know, I wanted him to survive, and it would have cost me a lot, and I knew it would have cost me a lot, like of my own goals and everything, but I was willing to make those sacrifices. I don't know if other people were, but so it was like, it was crushing, but I did have positive moments, you know, and I still have, you know, it's sad, but I just have a box of, you know, a big Rubbermaid thing of his stuff. And, you know, I haven't looked at it, probably it's up in the closet, which is sad, you know, but it's, you know, just things, you know, but that was something I was proud of, and that was something I carried. So, and it's hard, like that was another thing too. Sorry, I'm rambling now, but
it's okay.
It's hard too, like people, like, you know, I used to feel I love kids, and it made me work with kids. And so I worked at, you know, my first job I ever had was at or my second job was at Discovery Zone, you know, which was that little kids indoor playground. And at, you know, right after, a year after it, I was doing birthday parties for little kids and stuff like that. And then I worked with like the mentally disabled, but I've worked as a mentor for kids with church groups, and, you know, worked a job, but I always wanted to work with kids. I have like 17 nieces and nephews that I've always really close bond with, you know, that I would spend most of my time. So, I mean, I always wanted to, people would always ask, you have kids, you don't have kids yet. And I'd always say, well, you know, I did have one. And that's the thing too. So you instantly like crap people out right away when you're, you know, talking to them. And I think it just changes the dynamic again. And I think a lot of people think like, you know, you're looking for sympathy, or you're looking for, and you're just, you know, I'm just being honest and telling you, you know, like what it is, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel comfortable answering that question without mentioning that I did have one, you know what I mean? It feels wrong to his memory, but I've learned as I've gotten older too, like you can't just do that. You can't just drop that bomb on everybody, you know, right when you meet them. You know, so I mean, it's just, it's weird. But yeah, I don't know.
First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for sharing. You know, as you were sharing, it made me think a lot about, you know, some of the things that I've gone through, and some of the, I mean, they are dark. They are dark days, as my buddy Coy, if you're listening, Coy, dark days is what he would say. And though I don't know exactly, right? Like I would never have, you know, never know exactly what you went through. As you're sharing the thing about grief itself, I think for a long time it was like the hardest thing. Like when it came to me thinking of like what is the thing that I struggle with, it was, for a long time, it was grief. Being somebody like probably in their early 20s around that time, maybe mid 20s even, it's like, no one ever asks for grief, right? It comes.
Right.
And it comes in different ways for everybody, whether it's, losing a grandparent, when you're young, something that happens. I just had this conversation with my girlfriend the other night. Like, we weren't planning on talking about grief, right? But she called me up, and then one thing led to another, and I just wanted to be that ear, that ear for her. At that moment, she was talking about some things that happened in the past, and then I think we were both talking about things, that were happening in the past. And so I had done a lot of work with, the therapist, and changed some things in my life. And I was already in Hong Kong, and I was in this relationship, and we lived together, and I had a new job, and new city, maybe new clothes, right? Maybe new haircut. I was enjoying it. I went to pick her up because she worked late. I remember going home. We just had this amazing dinner. And then I got into bed. And then all of a sudden, I just woke up like crying. And I was like, and I remember saying this to myself, like, I don't understand. I don't know why. But my body knew.
Right.
My body, I didn't know this back then. I know this now, like the process of grief, a little more. My body just wanted that moment of cathartic letting go. Just letting that thing, that tension go. But my mind was afraid of allowing my body to let go, because I thought, that means I'm still thinking about it, like I'm still holding on to it, but then I was like, but I'm not holding on to it anymore. Like, it doesn't feel the same way. My girlfriend at that time just allowed me to cry in her arms. And she said, it's okay. I'm here. And I told Emily this the other night. I said, that was an example for me. Like, it planted a tool, or a planted a seed, or planted a tool for me for the rest of my life, that at some point I might encounter that maybe for somebody else. Just to be present, just to hear them cry, just to hear them shake, let go, and then it's all good, and then go to, like, I think I went to bed right after that.
Right.
But it's taught me a lot about just being present for somebody. Not even having to have the, like, she didn't know all the history and backstory about what I was going through. She had an idea, but she knew she was meeting me at a different time in my life. But the fact that she was there, and then flash forward years later, when I was going through my divorce, actually with her, when I was going through my divorce, I was still grieving, but because of what I went through, it's like I already had the tools myself. It's incredible. When I was in LA one night, and I was talking to my mentor, I think we were just like grabbing a donut and coffee or something like that. He said something to me that gave me perspective on that thing that was still, as I told Emily the other night, it was like residue. Just a little bit, not a lot, but it would rise to the surface every once in a while. And what he said to me from that point on, it relieved some more. So I'm pretty fascinated. Like, like before, grief was the thing that I was terrified of. Now I've embraced that growing up, like, as I get older, I'm going to be dealing with more.
Right.
Mom and Dad, if you hear this, I'm still struggling with how to live life without them. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, right? But the reality is settling, and yeah. I'm trying to pull those principles that my mentor gave me that helped me, Buddhist philosophy about letting go, about the time that you're with, you don't need to attach yourself.
Right.
The moments that you had were beautiful, but it's time to let it go, and you don't need a reason. It's just life. And so those things give me comfort. Those things let me know that I'm nothing different than anyone else, but the people might not be able to relate exactly to my story, but things like grief, things like wanting, being ready to lose, my parents, those are conversations that might help me when I'm ready to have them.
Right.
We've known each other since Metro.
Yeah.
I've always admired like how, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but vulnerable of a man you are. Not many men, and I am kind of generalizing, so apologize, listeners. You have always made it easy, or made it make me feel welcome to say how I feel, talk about things that it's like if I'm thinking it, I'm going to share it. Right. I don't have to hold anything back. And I don't know if you're like that with other people, or it's just like us. I just see that in you. And I'm not sure if you've always been like that, or it's something that's developed because of what's happened to you, which is totally like part of it, right? Like our narrative, right, makes us who we are. But the reason why I point that out is because I think that's a major strength for you. And I don't know if anyone has ever said that, but I love hearing your story, because I see how you've been able to persevere through it. But at the same time, it's like you're also balancing. Like if I keep the memory box or memories, like is that bad? Is that wrong? Right? Is that right. Am I attached? Everybody grieves in different ways, and the thing is that can we allow somebody? Can we respect somebody? Can we empathize with their process?
Right.
And I think that's the challenge. So I just think that you have always made me feel comfortable in who I am. And I think that's just like a strength of yours.
I actually appreciate that. And I consider that as well. I think most people, men especially, I think wouldn't consider that a strength, honestly. And I've seen it. I think a lot of it did change in me. I mean, I did a lot of growth through the grief. So I can't, so after, and I've had, it's weird how one bad night can, define, years, even, and not in this instance, just things. I've had bad nights, I've had times where the grief overtook me, and, I went and not even to use that as the scapegoat, but I've also learned, through the growth of that really, it's just about, like, I have probably changed. I probably wasn't that way before. And so I just think that, again, I think like it's probably been a lot of growth, not that I'm there, but so to allow people, but it's also changed the people that have come into my life. Like a lot less people have come into my life, over the years, but it's been more profound, impacts or relationships. And I've always been one of those to find the profound nature of anything in any interaction. There's a reason for everything we do. Like, I just believe that everything is, set up in some way. How or why, I'll never be able to understand that. But I find it hard to believe that every step that we take, there's not a reason for it, or a purpose, or a consequence, or a reaction, whatever. So, otherwise, that's the only way. Like for me, like talking about the parents and stuff like that, like I feel that too. And I don't know, it's weird because I don't know if most people do, because that's what a lot of me can't understand how people go through, like even having just like a normal 9 to 5 clock in clock out type existence, like go to work, go to happy hour, like that's great in itself, but like I just don't, the mentality is not mine. Like I feel like there's something more, and and then nothing against that, and we all have to do that. But that is like, that's why I've always tried to find, I've always been able to make it, no matter what. I've always landed on my feet. Now, hopefully saying that out loud doesn't, forever change it. But so I'm not afraid to take real chances and to, even just live them, I don't even know how to explain it, but where most people I don't think have that. I guess that is, and I've always been willing to allow other people to be like comfortable, and I just, so, because I have always, that's the weirdest thing about me too, as much as it has changed me, it's never really changed the core of me. Like, I do worry and give care about other people's thoughts and opinions, but when push comes to shove, I always end up, not giving, it's just doing what I feel is the best thing to do. And I mean, I don't step on people, or you know what I mean, but it's kind of like a teeter totter. It's just like I'm always, and I feel like that's one thing I've never really understood how people, I always seem to be like judged based on my decisions. I always hurt people's feelings somehow, it seems like, and never intentionally, never, in some of the ways that I never, and I don't see that in other type of relationships. Have seen things, and I don't think people really do appreciate that though, or respect that. I think in this machismo type of society, I think you really got to be, and I mean, out here in like Nevada, and that especially in Arizona, you see it. It's like big truck after big truck after big truck. You know what I mean? It's that's the manhood out here, and the fancy dressing and the clubs and the drinking and the partying. Which is something that was, I think a lot of people probably would have thought that, that would have been more my life. Attainment would have been down that path, but there's nothing in that world that I see things totally different now. I mean, to be honest with you, and it started at that real incident, but then it's evolved with growth, and that's all. And I'm not, and the worst part is it's still like not in our control. Like, you can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, well, I want to be, successful and go, be a philanthropist and be rich and live in this place. And no, I mean, there is still a reality to that. And for some reason, that type of mentality doesn't mesh up with the reality of, you got to pay your bills and you got to live, it's kind of, I think most artists would tell you that same thing. That's why it's a starving artist. And that's why it's like, I think, because that mentality is different though, too. Like, you're dreaming of attaining something that most people, it's so impossible for them to even fathom that they'll tell you they don't even want to do it. Like we've all heard, like almost every friend you have growing up, unless the ones that didn't, like, I wouldn't want to be in movies. I wouldn't want to be famous. That, you're lying. That's all you have this phony dream of you're going to take over the company that you're working in cubicle number 472, like you think you're going to work hard. And so, I mean, that is part of but it's just, everybody wants that lifestyle and that, to be able to live, not necessarily the profession, but just the control and the ability to, which, and the funny thing is those people will tell you that they don't have the control in their lives either. I mean, it's all managed and all, and other people are telling them. And so it's this weird thing, but many people can get through life without digging into that. And I don't understand how that is. Like, my mind is always like spinning, trying to figure out like, what the hell is the meaning to all this? I mean, that's the craziest thing of it all. And like my son too, like, that's one thing, like, how they say, like, your name is said 2 times in the last, there's 2 times and it's never said again or whatever, how someone who says it, and then the last person who, or whatever, you know what I mean?
How does that work?
How does it go? I have it messed up now, but it's like,
it's okay.
It's 2 times your name. It's like the last time someone actually says it, and then the last time someone thinks it maybe or something. I don't remember, but and then you're never, like, we were never, you know what I mean? And so that was part of me too, is I always wanted to have a place in history so they can look back, you know what I mean? But that's the thing, like with my son, like, if I never thought of him, nobody else would. I mean, his mom would probably be the only one, but it's not a Mary. And that's how everyone eventually becomes. So, I mean, I do think it's important that, we do keep, I don't know, but it's the whole thing. But I don't think people really get that in depth. I mean, I have had conversations, but again, it's a small percentage of people compared to the large, and that's not even like going into like the Kardashian fans, those, just mindless people that just can mind, and nothing wrong with that. It's crazy, man. I mean, it's just but for every, like we saw with, like, say Kyle Rittenhouse or Trump, or, even every bad guy nowadays has millions of followers. And that's what's kind of messes with my head sometimes, is now is the easiest time to make a name for yourself. And the funny thing is, it's exactly what I was trying to do when I was younger. But the weird thing was I sent 1,000 handwritten letters and emails, and, because we didn't have this easy access and this easy ability. And that's the weird thing too, is I have a lot of like good connections now that occasionally I try to tap into, but I'm not prepared to do it. And it's, it's just kind of the desire has gotten like less and less, because I see that it's a cheaper path. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing. And that's probably my curse, is I've always, like, it's always got to be challenging. And then if it's not, it gets too easy, and then I lose my interest. Like, I've never allowed myself to be successful. I've always achieved success in pretty much everything I've ever done. But then I get to a point and I just kind of back off, because it's not what I'm, comfortable with. I'm comfortable with the struggle and fighting, climbing up the ladder. I'm not comfortable at being close to the top, because I just know that the people at the top, I can match up with them emotionally, intellectually, anything like that. Never been comfortable monetarily. I have put myself, and I think part of that is because I was always like the poor kid in like a rich school growing up, and not that anyone else ever really, I don't think, thought about it that way or looked at it that way, but it was always ingrained in my head, like just seeing the opportunities that other people waste, that, and and as I've gotten older, I mean, I look back and I've wasted my own opportunities, so that I worked harder to get for, but stuff like that. But so I just never felt like I matched up, because then when you get into like the real thing in Hollywood and stuff, I mean, there's people with real money, and and then there's a bunch of real posers and stuff like that, so you kind of got to work. But I mean, so it's stupid to have that feeling, because if you can do it like the grassroots way and work here, I mean, like, that's the way to do it. And you should be proud of that. But it's just weird. It's just like the industry is, because it's designed for many to fail and stuff. I think it always gave me the feeling of like, well, I could, it's based off someone else. I could fail off someone else's perception or whatever, and I don't match up. And so I just never wanted to fully go, because I never really went fully into it. And that's something I regret in life, because I do think that was something that, again, like, I think my story should have been told, and it can only really be told by, me probably. But I do think it was a story that it was a situation I went through to tell the story. I mean, the fact that I started writing after and all that, and I did write a script on the story when I was younger, and it got good words at the time, but it's on a floppy disk, I think, and I've never tried to transfer it over, and it's not printed up, so but I do think the story just needs to be told, and I think it's something, but then again, it doesn't though. I don't know, that's the weird thing too, because it's it doesn't. None of these stories, a lot of these stories don't need to be told, but there's a lot of things that people aren't really interested in, that type of, that's, kids and babies and death. And that's not, most people want, which is why I think too, I'm totally rambling, but which is why I think too, that I've never, this is actually quite therapeutic. We should do this every week. Yeah, how about every Friday at 10 a.m.? Yeah.
I'm gonna send you the bill. Yeah, you got
Dr. Pete. Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, no, I'm done. I forgot where I was going now. I totally lost my train of thought.
Let me pose a question. So I think we should catch up the listeners a little bit.
Oh my God, there's listeners. I forgot about that.
So, yes, there are. when we were talking about doing the podcast, or doing an interview with you, you told me, or maybe I saw a post, but then you told me that you actually telling me and me hearing your voice about you having a son. And I when I heard that, the cadence on your voice, the enthusiasm, you were just so youthful, right? How did you get yourself to that? I guess I'm asking you this is because maybe there's listeners out there who are in that process of, something difficult in their life happened. Maybe like me, they went into a depression, right? Hopefully they're working themselves through it. I'd like to say out of it, but I don't know. I'm not very versed in talking about depression, but I know for me, I went through depression for sure. But then my therapist and the people that love me really helped me out, and also my passions at that time. That's when I ended up making the documentary on my father, and then I made a short Scooby-Doo with no dog, mini, what do you call it, web series. But then after that, I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna go to Hong Kong. And then that's where, but for you, what was your mindset as far as because at some point you found yourselves in Nevada, and now with your family, right? So can you, however you want to, but I'd love to hear, and that way the audience has a little bit, the listeners have because you mentioned your boy a few times, and I just wanted to, clarify that for them, so they can follow your story.
Okay. First thing I would say is, number one is grief. What we've learned is grief is okay. And two, nobody else, we've been talking, nobody else is going to understand your grief. So you got to kind of put that into context. For me, honestly, I spent a lot of time holding, for me, it started rough, dark. You remember, you said earlier, and I was a handsome, whatever gentleman, they're seeing this face to go along with that. So they're probably thinking I'm like a 19-year-old kid with a big hairy face. And so, no, I mean, you know the way. I mean, this is part of my like full transformation is there was, because I've had this, pretty much for like 10, 12 years now. And so I was thinking, but so I went from that happy, just party kind of animal to a bad, like, the other side of it, where it was just a pathetic party animal, to a degree, but not most people didn't realize it either. So I went down that path, and you would slowly, but I hold myself up and didn't really, and worked on myself. Like the same thing, like when you break up with someone, like I'm the type of person that spends that time, literally months, a year if it has to be, just rebuilding, because everything takes, like, I'm such a passionate person, I'm sure you are, that everything you get into takes from you. You take on a lot of, probably empathic, but take on some of that stuff, and so it gets taken away. So I mean, we're talking a hole. I mean, a giant hole in myself of who I was, who I thought I was, and who I really am. So it took, like, literally just, and again, I think for me, it helped. And I did talk. I briefly went to therapy and stuff like that. I've never been on medication, which probably would have helped. Because again, the same thing too is it was a different world back then, especially for depression. Like, people think you can't talk about it now. Oh shit! Now it's like out in your face, and every commercial, there's tons of medication, and everybody's on it. It seems like. Well, back when we were, I mean, it was, you couldn't even, like, going through what I went through. Some of the, my, would just call me schizophrenic and stuff like that. Just throw just things, because they didn't understand what I was going through and stuff, like, just tremendous grief on a young thing. So that's different too, is because I was younger. I think it took me a while more, and then, but it went from, seeing kids out in public and really feeling sad. I mean, to know that, my son, and not knowing, like, what he would be like, that was the biggest thing, is the questions, like, what would be, what, to never know that. And I had lots of opportunities to have another child, let's put it that way. And I just never really felt like I was comfortable enough or ready enough to be a dad and to put that full foot. So I think that was part of it too. And my son now, Radley, is, I mean, that almost completely wiped whatever remaining grief was there, if there was. I mean, I hate to say it, but it almost wiped it out completely. Like, because it's now, and I wish I would have done it a lot sooner, because I think, and it's weird to say that, I don't mean like, don't go have kids if you're going through grief, like, don't run out, but I think if I would have allowed myself, that was the thing, I finally allowed myself to open that door, that possibility to even have a kid. And then he came, and I saw the benefits, and especially, like, it allowed me the chance to be a dad, to see how I am as a dad. And I take a lot of pride in the fact that, I'm a great dad, and I'm a caring and attentive dad, which it's a really weird paradox, because when I look back on it, I spent a lot of time, like, I really work on myself, and have done a lot over the years. I've spent a lot of cross country trips by myself and stuff. But the weird thing is when my son Darren, who passed away, like, if he would have lived, he would have required massive amount of attention. I mean, he would have had cerebral palsy. They said, like, he just would have had a lot of health issues, all this stuff. So, like, the young me probably wouldn't have even been able to handle that. And I don't know. And plus, he was born, in Minnesota to, me and his mom did. So that relationship probably wouldn't have worked out. I'm sure she's still up there, so she would have stayed there, raised him, whatever. I would have been chasing my dreams, doing whatever. So it wasn't, it never would have been a good situation. It could have been a really bad situation because I was young and not ready for it and immature. So understanding that, has also kind of helped ease the burden, because I mean, that's the thing too, is like we made the decision to pull my son off, the rest of the ventilator and all the machines and that. So that's a guilt that, not giving him, even though they told us, it was really bad and he wasn't going to be able to, because that's what his lungs ended up shutting down, and probably because they took him off the ventilator too quickly in the first place, that they then had to put him back on. But so then to live with that guilt, to think like maybe there was a chance, they told us it was like a 10% chance. Well, that, maybe there was a chance, but they also encouraged us basically to do the 90% chance, so it was like, and you're hearing that from doctors and stuff. So that was tough to get over. But, I spend a lot of time like working through it. I mean, like literally, like you said, releasing it, and it just got easier over time. And talking about it, I used to go give talks at schools and junior highs. When I first started doing it, I don't think they realized how real I was going to be to these young kids, because and I only knew how to do it, and I was younger anyway. So I think that did help. I think, and that's the thing, I think people that are depressed, people that are going through grief, I think number one, you need to feel okay with the fact that, like you said, you can let it out and reach out. That's the thing. Like, I never did that. Like, I honestly sometimes feel like it's kind of a miracle that I'm still here, because I never reached out. And even as vulnerable as, you think, or I do feel a lot of times, because I do feel like I'm open as well. Like, I've never been in that regard where when I'm really needing someone, where I can reach out. Like, I'm not that guy at all. So I do think for other people, I think it's literally, it's important. I've been there for other people, and that's where I get my strength, and has helped me to go through. And that's what I think, like, as I was a much different person. I mean, like the beard, the laid back. And I think that's the change. Is I do see, like, I've gotten nicer and more, just respectful towards people in general, where I actually now I consider everything, like back then. And I think there's two kinds of people in this world, and there's people that do and there's people that don't. Most people are out there not, and it's little things of, dinging your car in a parking lot, to just cheating on you for 10 years, you know what I mean? Having a family. There's little aspects, but so it's understanding too that other people, like I said, just for me, that was kind of always it. Is it came to a point where it was like, because I used to try to express it to everybody too, and I never felt comfortable with the way that it would come out, because then it came out. And so then you just, like, for me, one of the main things is understanding that it's not for other people to accept, and it's okay. Like, it's okay to have grief. It's okay. Like we were talking, like, that's the thing too. If I'm basing my grief off what you think my grief should be, I'm never getting through that. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what it was. It was learning that this is my grief. If someone else is going through, and like, I will respect your grief too. That's the thing. Because again, like, that's where people think it's been like a cross, so to speak, or whatever, for me as well. Like, I think people think, like, if I tell them my story, they feel like their story, like I feel like, because my story has impacted me so much, that I feel like your story is lesser. I've never felt that. I feel like my grief is pretty tough, but everybody's grief is tough. I know lots of people that I feel like I don't match up to them. Their life has been way harder. Mine is something that, and so that's what you have. Like, it's respecting everyone else's and understanding that you can't base yours off other people. So it's been hard though, because I think people think that like I try to, or I may be diminishing their grief when I'm not. I actually understand that everybody's grief is grief. That's it. It's traumatic, it's grief for yourself, and you're as strong as what you go through. And everybody's pretty damn strong in my book for surviving through what we're going through right now. I mean, it's crazy. The world has changed immensely, and we're all dealing with grief, and we're all dealing with, and it's manifesting itself, I think, in many different ways from every angle, from all these, and I do think we're in some dark times. I don't know. But so again, there we go down and just keep going. But
I appreciate all you've shared today, because there's a part of me that's been feeling like lost, but at the same time, there's this other part of me that's been feeling like a lot of growth, right? But the lost kind of like sometimes gets loud. And so, like, for example, I never had an anxiety attack before. So when I went through all these symptoms, articles say like, you feel like you're having a heart attack. For a while, it was really like humbling, because I thought like, well, I've been practicing, taking so much time working on, my, like meditation, breathing, calming down, my martial arts, my boxing, yoga. And then here I go have an anxiety attack, and I'm like, dang, like I'm not good at this thing, And then I realized like, no, if you like if you're not so hard on yourself, it's actually like leveling up. like Emily, she likes to say like level up. Because I had the anxiety attack, I mean, I'm grateful that I was able to overcome, or, survive or whatever. Because I've made the choice now, like I never want that. If I can, I don't want that to happen again. So I've been learning these different things. And even in the hospital, the doctor taught me, he goes, do you know box breathing? And I was like, no. And then he taught me, so listeners or Ricky, I'll just, real quick. So box breathing is like you're making a square or rectangle, and you're like, breathe in, hold it, breathe out, and then relax, and then do it all over, right? And then you do that to calm. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, thanks, doctor. Like I never knew that. That whenever you're having, anxiety, try that. A couple of days after, being in the hospital, I woke up and I had a little one. I tried the box breathing, and it started helping, but my mind would start going into those places. It would wander. I told myself, I said, well, first of all, now I have the information from that experience. I can get past this, but how? So what I did was, I remembered something that related to me so well that I actually liked, that I actually loved. We used to work on close range clench boxing, and then how you create a little space, whether it's checking with your elbow, whether it's a shove, just to get a couple inches, and you can get angles, but you have to take the hit. You have to feel that pressure. Let's go back to that time when you felt that pressure, but you trained to feel good about that pressure. So that evening, it was like I was half asleep, but I was like feeling my heart rate, beat. And then I was like, okay, well, the first thing I got to do is I got to let my body submit. I got to relax, because only then can I be in tune with my surroundings. And then, oh man, it hurts, oh man, like, oh, there's the liver, spleen, right? And then, okay, we're gonna be all right. Boom, 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 right? Create that space. I had found my own process. I just been feeling, and I think a lot of it is because of COVID. the world is not how we grew up assuming it is. The optimistic side of me, that comes out is like, that's teaching me not to attach myself, not to be attached to how I used to look at things. Because if life is always constantly changing, that's why not attaching yourself to anything, right, is helpful. Easier said than done. When we don't attach ourselves to the thing, we have room for something new or a different process or an option. And that gives me hope, but it still doesn't always answer my questions. Finding, strategically ways of surviving, of living. I don't know if it was my sister or my siblings said in my Courageous Conversation group, but they said, we need to give ourselves more grace, right? And so I always remember that. Like, no matter what, I have to give myself grace. And I think the conversation that we've had in here today, how you've been able to continue, how you've been able to grow, to learn, to live, is you've also given yourself opportunities like, of grace. Whether it was like, man, that time period in my life was really shitty, or that person, what they did, was really shitty, or maybe what I did was really shitty, right. But you give yourself grace, so there's room, there's space for something else.
Right.
Because if you don't, you just lock it in and you're stuck, and what it is you're attached to that thing that was in your past.
Right.
Right. And I'm not saying like it's a one and done type of a thing. I mean, it's constant, right. It's constant work, but I think that is the work. I was listening to a YouTube, I was watching and listening to a YouTube, and the guy was talking about how he was giving advice. He's a doctor, and he's giving advice on how we can train our minds, how we can train the brain, because somebody had written in and they were saying that they're motivated to do some things and they were not motivated to do some things. But the things that they were motivated to do were the things that were unhealthy. The doctor wasn't shaming him or anything like that, but you could definitely tell the doctor was like, you gotta, do you want to get better, right? So what was cool was the doctor gave him, like, he actually spent like, I think, a half an hour writing in. The very first thing he said was, get your sleep back. He said, that's the main thing. And then from that point on, he went into like the food, and he actually gave a recipe. And then, and then he gave other things. It's just like a nice list. Ever since I got COVID, I've been trying to get myself back to having that mindset again. But it's been very challenging. But you see like the connection though. It's like,
right.
Maybe I have been feeling lost, and I just needed to get another perspective of like, this is the world that we live in, and it's okay to not be clear about things. This but this is something I wanted to bring up, was fulfillment. When you find the thing aligns with who you are and that thing brings you fulfillment. Some people call it your purpose. Some people aren't comfortable with hearing that word, your purpose. So what is that thing? But I want it to align with who I am naturally, whether it's a mission, whether it's a goal, whether it's a task, or whether it's a whatever. I used to question myself a lot about the film thing, I even took an acting class. It was an 8-week class. This was in Burbank. I always had this like, I want to do films more. And then I took that acting class because I was like, I need to find out. I worked hard, probably worked the first 2 weeks. And then by week 3, I was like, I don't know if I really, what is it? Like, why don't I want to work hard at reading this, the sides? I had a flashback of when I loved it at MCTC, the theater, like I was like kicking ass, like in that theater program, like I was like loving every moment of it. And then even in Hong Kong, when I was like, doing like being on film sets, why was it right now? And here I am amongst these other hungry actors, you know, they're grinding it out. They, you know, some of them are on sets, you know, like they already got a gig lined up. And I'm like, I kind of just want to not do this.
Yeah.
But I was fighting it. I was still fighting it. I was like, come on, Pete, you're just scared. Like, you don't want to. Yeah, I think I am scared, but something is pulling me in a different direction.
Right.
I can't be that person that I used to was anymore, because it's not enough anymore. I have to be who I am, and I want that to be enough. In my group one time, I said, you know, what brings you fulfillment? And I remember one of my my friends, because it was just friends and family in that group. The friend was like, my kids. When she said that, at first part of me was like, okay, but then what? I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, okay, your mom, your kids, you're there for them. I get it. But what is really bringing you fulfillment? And then, but then it was like, okay, hold on, Pete. Maybe you just need to listen and hold space as she's opening up and sharing about what brings her fulfillment. You're talking about renovating this house. It's not just for your kids. You putting up that curtain, that's not for your kids.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer this, but I'd like to ask you, if I can. What do you think at this point in your life, based on all your experiences, based on the ups and downs, the left, rights, inside out, at this point in your life, what brings you fulfillment? I know it's a heavy one. I know.
Yeah. Well, I would just say my kids, but no, I mean, it's being a dad is that was something that, again, I always felt was kind of taken away from me, and I didn't, you know, the questions never knowing, but so I waited, you know, it was a long time to feel it. So, and I do feel like there really is nothing better in my world anyways than being able to provide for my son, teaching my son, seeing, like, you know, I mean, we're going through, like, he just, you know, he's 3 months into 4, but you know, he just got into school. It's his second week of school, and I never thought his teachers come out and commended his reading, because my son can, like, read. I taught him how to read already, and he's like, but came out and commended, like, just hearing stuff like that. I never imagined that type of, you know, pride. And but it's just knowing that, again, like, my fulfillment has just always been, like, I am pretty simple. You know, I want money, I want fame, but, you know, when it comes down to it, I'm a very simple guy. And, like, so it is like being able to just know that no matter what, like, that I've always stepped up to any challenge I've ever come. Like, I know my own character, and be damned everyone else, honestly. And not in the sense that, like, you know, but so I've always been just, like, literally, that's just knowing that I'm always gonna rise to any occasion that I need to. And my son, like, there's a legacy. Like, that's the thing. Like you were saying a little bit ago, and my friend from up in Minnesota, he's been challenging me on that a lot lately too. It's like, what is your legacy? And it is true. Like, again, going back to what we were talking before, where, you know, your name only goes so far, and your memory and everything else. So, I mean, it's like the legacy that you live behind. And, like, I always thought it would be much bigger based on, you know, how my early years went, what I thought, and it could still be whatever. But I mean, I used to have, like, visions of running for president someday. I mean, I was that all-American. I was that all-American boy, man. Now, even with Trump, I still can't do it. It's still that path's burned for me. But those were real possibilities, I think, too. I could have went, I mean, I don't think I would have ever been, but I mean, like, down those, any path, I think it was all open and available. And so now it's not as much, I mean, obviously the reality of it all. And so that really is where I find, I mean, like, knowing, I want to know that my son, because that's the biggest, weirdest thing. I always thought, like, my biggest fear when Radley was born would be, like, losing him, like my others, because my son died. So I thought my biggest fear is him being without me, losing me before he should, like, before, I mean, like, he should be able to, because you just don't know. I want to raise him. I want to know that I'm putting a good, because he will, like, they're all little humans, you know what I mean? They're gonna grow up and be us, and try to navigate through the challenges. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and that's what I learned too from everything, is just everybody has, like I said, their own grief. And maybe, like, when I was young, I'd be like, well, that's, you really care about that, that's what you're worried. But it's like, we're all in this thing, which the craziest thing about it all is none of it means anything. No matter what you do, it really means nothing. If there's an afterlife, if there's something that goes for eternity, whatever, that's a different story, I guess. But it does, the minute you leave this earth, it doesn't matter if you have made a legacy. I mean, it really doesn't. Eventually that'll be gone. Eventually if the world keeps spinning and generations keep coming in, and it's going to be less and less, like, look at this Jake Paul generation. I mean, we're one generation away from Martin Luther King not even being known anymore. You know what I mean? Like, the world is turning towards every kid having a phone in their face at the age of 3. I mean, my son, his mom got him hooked on, like, them too. Like, I mean, it's just, it's all changing. It's changing our brains. And so, I mean, and that's the weirdest thing, is it's weird that there is no, it doesn't matter, but it matters to the people you are surrounded by. And that's your legacy. I mean, just having it go on and hopefully go on and being that type of person. So, I mean, it really is. It's a weird question to ask me, because I can find the reason for nothing in everything. I can find the reason, I used to be, and I can still, but it's just bizarre when you put it in that term. But so it really does to me. I mean, there's not much else, and I could be doing it wrong right now. That's the thing. Like, I could be doing it all wrong, and maybe that's the problem. But I just, to me, once my dude came into the world, like, it became, I'm going to do anything I can to lead that kid. And that's, probably not my fulfillment, I guess, but there's not much else that beats that, though. That's the thing. Like, there's not much else that really does make my heart happy. You know what I mean? Like, there's little things, but like, let's say I don't get into, like, TV shows anymore. I don't have anything, like, I don't have, it's just weird. I don't have podcasts. I don't listen to podcasts. I wish I could. I don't know where people find all this time. I really don't, to go on social media and stuff like that. Like, I'll put a post on Facebook, and that's, and I think people think it's crazy. It'll take me 10 minutes to write up, I think I'm a writer, but it's like, I don't know where people find this time. I have no time. I don't know. And I don't do anything. Like, I'm not, like, so, immersed in a million different things. I'm just living life, normally, but I just don't know where people find all this time, man. And it is, I mean, it's good. There's probably a lot smarter people out there now, and more, educated. It's changed the whole world. I mean, it is for me. I'm one that I love the internet. I love how it has, like, it's brought, knowledge, information, but I'm also one that understands that information is, it's not all encompassing. It's not all, like, you have to know exactly how to look and search. And a lot of these people are doing, I don't know where I'm going with that now, but so, I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, that's, I don't know.
No,
What would your answer be to that?
When I was designing the first chapter in my book, I kept on coming back to the thing that I want people to realize or start off with and it's knowing your story. If we take the time to know who we are up to this point, like if we can actually look at those things that hurt us, look at those things that we didn't like about ourselves for whatever reason, and lots of the things could have been things that were done to us. Right. Like the sad thing is a lot of the trauma is something in our childhood that we had no say, no control, and then it became our programming until hopefully at some point someone said, you don't have to be like that. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to hold yourself to that thought. But some people never get that. Some people never get that exposure. And I'm grateful that I met my mentor. I just watched how he lived his life. And I was like, I want that. I want to be able to say how I feel. I want to be able to be who I am. I don't want to feel shameful. I don't want to be afraid. I don't even want to like know all the answers.
Right.
I just want to be in this moment, but the very best me. And the only person that can determine that definition is me. For such a long time, I didn't have that. For such a long time, I had so many thoughts of what other people were thinking, what society was feeding. It's kind of like Fight Club. I needed the Tyler Durden, not to say Orpheus is Tyler Durden, because it's not like that. It's not like that. I needed to find the Tyler Durden in myself, the person that gave myself permission to say, fuck it, be that person.
Right.
Stop listening to those voices in you that are telling you that you can't do something or you can't be something, or even like with dating. And I think this is going to be my second book, is talking about like growing up in the Midwest as a Chinese American and how that factored into my I want to say masculinity, but not just masculinity, but like just like being a man, the trauma that I experienced from not knowing that I could just be myself.
Right.
Instead, I was always trying to fit in a mold.
Right.
And then either I was trying to fit in a mold that society was offering, or I was feeling ashamed of the mold that I saw other men, like my examples. I was ashamed of them.
Right.
And that's not fair. And I had to learn to love them for who they are. And, nothing that they did was wrong. It's just I needed something else.
Right.
Because I like this side of me that isn't afraid to go to like, it's weird. It's like, I don't want to go to war, but I like having these skills that I can fight.
Right.
But I'm a very peaceful person.
Yeah.
Right? Like I love people, but I also like it that I don't mind getting hurt.
Right.
Because I think for a very long time I was taught, if it hurts, run away from it. Right? If it's gonna hurt you, you don't want that to happen to you. You don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like we can't live life like that. So boxing taught me, like, all you gotta do is just watch a fight, and it's like, wow, why are they getting punched? It's like nobody can not get punched.
Right.
Now, if you're Floyd Mayweather Jr., you can avoid many punches.
Yeah.
But
51-0, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So to go back to answer your question, I want people to be authentic because I don't want people to fear for their lives, fear themselves, feel any shame, because we all deal with trauma.
Right.
But what's life like when we allow ourselves to get past those things that hurt us? What does that look like? I'm not mentoring them, but I wanna say that I'm mentoring them. But I got some like young men that I talk to every, once in a while, and some of them are Asian, so we relate in that sense specifically. And we talk sometimes about like about dating. I understand what there's like feeling, but I'm somewhere different now. If you want to have those connections with somebody, whether it's sexual or non-sexual, intimacy, if you want to have fun, if you want to have communication with somebody, if that's what you want, then go get it. And this is the thing that took me the longest to learn. Just be yourself. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to love myself, and I'm going to show you the best me that I can, meaning me. I'm not going to try to be something that I'm not. And you're going to either accept it or you're not.
Right.
If you accept it, maybe there's another date, yeah. If not, then respectfully we'll part. But you're not going to ghost me, right? Because I used to would take those things so personally, even up to before I left LA.
Right.
I took it so personally until one night, a friend from Minnesota was on Facebook, and I messaged him. I said, I'm going through this thing, and this happened tonight, and I just feel like I'm just never gonna have and all I wanted was a connection with a female like I had with the guys.
Right.
I just wanted that. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to show them this is Pete Wong. And then my friend Danny said, you just got to hang in there, Pete. You just got to hang in there because you're really special, and it's going to take someone really special to see that. And they have to not be afraid of it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, but what else?
Yeah.
So, but then the pandemic happened, and then I started doing things, obviously for myself. Like I was cooking, making meals for myself, exercising. And I was like, I would love to cook this meal one day with my girlfriend. And here we are. When I started dating Emily, she got me right away, and it's worked. We love each other. We care about each other. She loves cooking. I truly believe, like Muhammad Ali, like Orpheus used to say when we sparred, when we trained, he'd say, "You're the champ. You're the champ." And I'd be like, "Who's he talking to?" How am I the champ? Like champ is somebody like big and like muscular, right? Like me, like I'm Asian, I'm scrawny, and it's like, no, get that out of your narrative. Get that out. Otherwise you're never going to give yourself a chance. Get that out. And what it is authenticity. I need to show up in my authentic self because that's going to be my best self. So I want other people to do the same, and I want to create spaces where they can be the same. I want to give them opportunities where they can learn how to do that. What you do with that information is up to you. Like I can't coach you, through a career path, but right. I want you to live your life not feeling ashamed of your pain. And that brings me so much fulfillment, and like I do that with everybody, like, and maybe that's why I'm working with kids. Maybe like the timeline or whatever said, here you go.
Right.
You're working with kids again, but you're going to show them how to be their authentic self in 6th grade.
Yeah. Maybe that is the start. But yeah, that's great, man. Actually, that is and that's strong, not to be ashamed of your pain. Like that's the thing. Lots of people are. It's you grew. Like that was your growth too, and feeling comfortable enough and knowing what you wanted and knowing that you have to not accept less and go for what you want and find that, like before, that's kind of how I felt. And I felt it in dating before, but I felt it in my Hollywood writing, whatever. But desperation almost, when you're just trying to make a connection, that it comes across, like you said, it's not authentic. Like, and people, I don't know if they just don't embrace, you know what I mean? Like, it comes, because I don't know if it really comes across like that. Because I also think too that sometimes that is being authentic though, and putting yourself out there in a vulnerable way, or even trying to make a connection, and even putting it out there, like you were doing it for like legitimately like good reasons, like legitimate to improve yourself, to improve other people, stuff like that. Like, and it's weird, those people that weren't responding and weren't receptive, again, just not for that, you know what I mean? It's just, it all works out, and that's the weird thing. And now you found Emily, which literally is probably been, I mean, I'm sure you would say probably one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing, that's ever happened for you and worked out for you, and really given you, it seems like, I mean, literally you're comfortable. And that's what, like, based on your past, like you were saying, that's one of the most important things you've ever really been looking for in your life, is comfort, to be comfortable in your own skin. And that's where I'm like almost the opposite. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten less and less comfortable, because, and not, I don't know, weird in a different way, I guess, because I'm also more comfortable in the sense that, like, I will protect my own and my, like, more than I ever would in the past. And I used to be an alpha male, whatever, but now I literally know I'm here to protect, like, my son. Like, there's no one else that's going to lead him. It's kind of a different thing. But I do feel in a lot of ways, like, and I've said this for years, like, I almost, though, when I was dealing with my son Darren, who passed away, and then after, I almost felt like in that period I was more of a grown man, because I was trying to fight and trying to match up everybody else's expectations. So in society's eyes, I had a well-paying job. I was doing all that stuff, living, buying a house, this and that. And now it's the opposite. Now I could care less about any of that shit, but I'm also more in tune with, like, I just know, like, what I'm comfortable, what I want. Now, it's easier said than done. I mean, it's easier saying than doing. So sometimes it doesn't match up, but I know it. You know what I mean? I know what I want. I'm willing to take. So, yeah, I mean, that's just that. I think it's great, man. And I think literally, like, even hearing you, like, and seeing your growth and development as, like, not a fighter, but a fighter, over, seeing your posts over the years and watch when you got into it, and that, like, that is, like, that's something to be commended and that I respect you for, because like,
thanks.
those are good, positive changes that you've made to literally get yourself to this point, to grow. Like, you were in a dark place and have risen above that, and instead, and not just risen above, but you've used it to your benefit and allowed yourself, like you said, no shame in your pain. Like, it's great. I mean, you have learned to almost, I don't want to say master it, but like, literally, so it's working out. So that's what I would say, like, you're a healthy individual, which is kind of weird, you know what I mean? But in this society of unhealthy people, and that's the thing, is sometimes I would lose sight of that for myself, because the unhealthy people attack you and are going to try to make you feel unhealthy, because that makes their unhealthiness okay. And they can understand and embrace what they don't understand. But so, I mean, that's just, I think that's very commendable. And I think it shows your growth. Like, that's part of it, man. And it's not to say that you were so far off back in the day or anything, but it's just, you can literally see it and hear it. And even this, like your podcast and stuff like that, like you're doing the things that you want to do that are bringing you that fulfillment, as you're saying. I mean, not that this is all, but I mean, it's part of it. Like you're doing all the proper things. Like I commend you for that, man. I wish and I mean, this is going to be a good experience that I'm going to build on as well. Cause I've kind of gotten out of that, I just have gotten like, I'm old. Well, I am a year older than you, but you kind of, I've lost sight. I've hit that thing. So this was important for me too. Like, I think that's why too, we finally did get to actually connect in that, because I think before in the past, I was scared, I was more scared to do it and wasn't really, even now, like, good luck editing this, buddy.
I know, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it.
This, but I mean, try to make it something someone wants to. We'll have to have a follow-up where we talk successes and what, the good things that we've gone through and achieved and this and that. And like, because I think that's important too, but it is weird. Like, it just seems just, this whole thing is just weird, man. I give you props. I want to do something like this. Even it would help my business, like my sports handicapping. If I did a show about sport, even that. But I've never found the ability to feel comfortable doing this. You know what I mean? Like,
if I end up moving out there, we can support each other as far as like, all I need is just the opportunity. You can be quiet and maybe affect a few people or nobody, or you can get loud and proud and you don't know how many people you can impact. Right. And to me, it's not a numbers thing, but it's more the fact that people need it. And if that's what brings you fulfillment, why aren't you doing it?
Right.
There's a saying out there about not being small, not living your life small, because there's people who need your gifts. Right. And that's always like stuck with me. Like, oh, I know, gosh, like, oh, it's a good quote. I know. I love that you brought that up, with your company, with your business, because I was thinking about that too. I was like, wow, like if I get out there, maybe this could be a thing where, because I like sports too, and I think sports have so much we can learn about life, but but I'm one of those people that's also, sports alone cannot be life.
Right.
Just like martial arts alone cannot be life.
Right.
Because it won't teach me how to hang in there when I'm dealing with trying to work through like my relationship, when triggers come up. I got to be present. I can't be thinking about the game, and I can't be,
Right.
I got to be full present. And so going back to what you shared about your fulfillment, I commend you for whatever reason. It makes you who you are. Thank you for being truthful to answering that question. I do 5 questions with my guests. Okay.
Right.
These are 5 random questions.
Okay.
What is your favorite animal and why?
Actually, I've always been a giraffe or a zebra. I have 2 that are up there. And really don't know why otherwise. I was just fascinated by both their color patterns when I was a kid my whole life. But I lived next to the lion habitat out here, and we went and recently got some facts about giraffes. There's one giraffe that lives there, Ozzy, that's been there for a while, and they're actually pretty amazing creatures. So I'd have to say a giraffe now, but It's pretty amazing. They only sleep like I think it's like 5 minutes a day. They can actually stomp a lion. They stomp lions to death and that, which I never would have known. They're incredibly smart. They're one of the smartest creatures out there. Yeah, it's actually so I like giraffes, I guess. But yeah, some interesting factoids.
That is, listeners, if you didn't know that, oh my gosh, like because their legs are really.
Yeah, I never would have thought, but that's what the lions are afraid of them because they will stomp them, I guess. As I never would have thought that.
That is awesome. I'm excited to share that with somebody tonight. Okay. Or quiz somebody on the street. No.
If you move out here, if you come out this way, we'll take you to the lion habitat. You'll learn that yourself.
I like lions. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite food or meal?
It's got to be like taquitos. I'm like a taquito. It'd be like I love Mexican food. I could eat Mexican food all the time. Whenever Chipotle is my favorite fast food. Anything I make here, it's nachos, taquitos, burrito. I mean, like literally, I've always been. That's just my food.
I like Mexican food too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. Have you seen Trevor Noah's bit on tacos?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
I'll have to check it out.
So the whole thing is on Netflix. It's The Son of Patricia. Okay. You should watch. I mean, it's a whole stand-up. But the YouTube leaves out some stuff of his taco bit.
Oh, really?
You can watch it on YouTube, Taco, Trevor Noah. It's hilarious. But if you watch the show, the stand-up, you catch it all, and then he brings it back. He brings it back at the end.
All right.
So,
I'll check it out. I do like him. I have seen some of his stand-up, but I'll have to check that out.
Awesome. Let me know what you think about the tacos. Okay. Third one. All right.
So can I ask you? Yeah. What's your favorite food then?
Whoa, he's turning it around. Okay, all right.
Flip it around. Yeah, gotta get interesting to know.
Okay, let me think. Okay, so it used to be, because I feel like I'm changing again, but I'll just say the one that it has been. So I like it's either we'll say Vietnamese, but it can be Thai as well. But I like a Vietnamese yellow curry with not rice, but baguette. Because there used to be this restaurant that we would go to in after fight church, after training. And it was a Vietnamese restaurant, and we would go there, and my buddy introduced me to this meal, and they'd always take forever to cook it. So everyone's food would be out, they'd be eating it, and they're like, "Where's yours?" And I'm like, it's coming, right? And then my buddy taught me to get it with the bread, and they make the bread fresh, and then it's like, it just nourishes me, and it savor it, and it satiates me, I guess you could say.
Nice.
But I think now I'm leaning into like Indian food, because I want my palate to be more complex.
Yeah.
I want to be like, somebody asked me, "What's your dream?" And when we were in LA, my buddy Henry, he was in the car, and he said, "What's your dream?" And I just shouted out, I said, "I want to be like Anthony Bourdain,
right,
but not cooking. I want to help people like heal."
Right.
So I want to travel, and I want to like get different kind of foods. So
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks for asking the question. All right. Since we've been talking about Nevada, what's one thing when I get out there I'm going to have to do, or Emily and I are going to have to do, besides just hang out and kicking it with you?
Well, you got to go see Ozzy at the Lion Habitat. I just told you that, but
Yeah.
No, there's a cool place out here that not many people know about. I mean, there's lots of things you'd have to do, like that I would definitely recommend. Like there's but one cool thing is there's a place called the Wheel of Misfortune out here, and it's off the path a little bit. It's like 20 miles out a little bit. And it's literally someone went made, it's a bunch of like, I don't even know what they are. They're just giant like holes that have been like, they have concrete in and stuff, but now it's invaded with like graffiti. There's tons of just brilliant pieces and all this stuff, but someone went out and made a Wheel of Fortune in the middle of the desert here somewhere. And it's like, but it's the Wheel of Misfortune, which it's all run down now, but we've taken the kids out there a couple times, and it's just cool to go out there and check out and like to see, and you hang out. Like we've been out there, they were filming stuff out there, but I mean, I don't know if that would be the one thing. There's so many things. There's so many things here that even I haven't done yet. Like I haven't been to Mount Charleston yet, which they have snow on right now, so that's only like 25-30 minutes away. Haven't been there. There's just, it's literally so much stuff to do that it's just, I mean, like I said, I love it, but it's outdoors 24/7. Like that's the thing. There's like parks, even just like that's one thing I've been doing with my son lately, is taking him to different parks, because I've been driving around a lot, so I see all these parks and nicer neighborhoods, some not so nice, but and I've just been keeping track of them and trying to take him, and it's just like there's just so much to do outdoors here that I've never really noticed in places like Phoenix when I live there and stuff like that. I'm sure they have it all too, but so that's what kind of puts us over the top too, I think. But yeah, there's a lot. I could give you a list, man.
Oh, that's great. What's a sound that annoys you?
I don't know if it's really a sound that annoys me. It kind of is, I don't know, but I hate when I'm saying something. I hate when someone interrupts you to go, huh? Like you're not even finished saying the whole sentence, and they're already like, huh? Like right off the second word. Like that literally is my chalkboard, nails on the chalkboard. Like it makes me cringe. I don't really have a lot of sounds that make me cringe or anything like that, but that does every single time.
So,
and I probably do it a lot too. I probably it's like unintentional, I don't know, but that literally is the one thing that it just irks me.
Is there particular people that do that? You don't have to name them, but
yeah, there's a few people in my life that I've met that do that often, and I have strangers too. Like it'll even be when I overhear a conversation. Like it's just if I hear someone interrupt someone saying something to ask them what they're saying, I always just want to be like, just let him finish the sentence, B. Like, come on. Like maybe you'll catch it on the last couple words. Like it just drives me nuts. I don't know. How about you? You got one for that one?
I don't think I could ever live by a train.
Oh yeah.
Maybe my ears are really sensitive to sound now because I train them to be, but like it's like, oh, somebody dropped a pin. No. But like I love nature, and I don't mind trains, but I could never I'm thinking of that scene in Seven. Right? Like they're talking like and it's like, oh, it's just the train. It's just the train. No, I couldn't do that. What is something that you'd like to share with the listeners before we go?
It's a question like that gets me, man. I would just, based on what we've been talking about, just would say and just say, like you said, just don't give up no matter what. I don't know what else. That would be no matter what, you just always got to keep fighting and keep going, because this is it. Like, this is it. Like, I think too many people think this is all like a game and don't look at things in that context. Like, it is, and it's hard to do. I understand it, but just if you're fighting, if you're struggling, reach out. Don't give up. Keep going. Even if you're a football coach, I forget where he was from, but he was like a national coach. He had won a couple titles. He came in when I was selling cars. He came in and gave us a speech one time. They had hired him in, but he just looked at us and was telling us the story, but said, even when you're on top, pedal downhill. Like, and I always took that, like, never give up, never stop, just always keep going. And even when you're cruising, you got to keep pedaling. Like, that's how I've always looked at it. We're all doing all right too. That's what I think. As long as you're not out there not wearing masks, not vaccinated, as long as you're doing productive things for this society, not hanging out at, not arguing for Kyle Rittenhouse or Donald Trump or any of the stupid Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these stupid people, then you're on the right path. But I really we need to get back to like the insane has become the sane now. And that's the thing. Like, we need to flip it back around, and we need to have character and backbone in this country. And that includes us too, standing up to all these people and not letting it slide by. That's the thing too. Like, there is a right and a wrong. Like, and there's a black and a white, and we bring all this gray into it. And we just need to go back to right and wrong. And I think we'll be all right. But if we don't, I think we're all in for some trouble, man. I've never seen the world so crazy on a day-to-day. It's like a bunch of younger me's running around, and that's not a good thing, man. You have to care about things, man. Can't just justify everything for your own benefit. Like, that's all. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably not what you're looking for, but that's what I got, man. I don't know.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. A bunch of little Ricky Hoffmans.
Yeah, well, there probably are a bunch of little Ricky Hoffmans running around, but nah, I'm just like it. I do feel like that sometimes. I feel like everybody's kind of like I was always. That's kind of what people used to thought was special about me, was because I didn't seem like I cared and I did my own thing. And I think that's part of the problem, is that's what everyone is nowadays. It's like not and I never did it to hurt people or to like it just it was just the way but I think now people just don't care, and they're out to hurt people as long as it benefits themselves, and that's what I mean by that. I really think like it's crazy, man. I mean, people just used to care like about how they treated other people, and like now we're arguing whether a guy who incites riots. I mean, it's just bizarre, man. It's just bizarre. And let's go, Joe. That's what I'd say. But,
well, we will keep pedaling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, brother. I really appreciate you inviting me on and extending the opportunity. And I'm sorry, we might have to redo this because it took like 4 hours to get comfortable, and even I still don't feel comfortable. I'm like, you might have to send me it because I'm gonna be like, nope, take that out. Nope, take that out. Do your thing, man. You're doing a great job. But yeah, you got to give me a chance. We'll come on and have some happy, funny stories and go over that sometime, because I just feel like I come across like a whiny little, like negative Nancy. Like I already feel like I want to kick my own ass, and I haven't even seen it yet.
No.
But
no, so, we mixed it up.
Yeah, no, we did. I know. It just feels it's just such a weird time and place. But all so we gotta talk about the funny, like I got funny Vegas stories that'll have you rolling. I hope, or you'll be like,
All right, listeners, you heard it here. So Ricky wants to come back.
Yeah.
Maybe not on here, but I will tell you personally my Vegas stories.
Oh, dun dun dun.
They were great. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, brother. I love you so much, and I enjoy this opportunity because I think our friendship grew even more because it's just nice to get some time with you. So I appreciate that you did this, and there's no better time than right now to have these kind of conversations.
Thank you, brother. Love you as well.
You are loved. You are enough. You are worthy. Blessings to all of you.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next week. And remember, you are loved, you are enough, and you are worthy. Blessings to all of you.